Finally, after months of searching this old warehouse, I solved FNAF Secret of the Mimic. Gotta say, it felt really easy. A bit too easy, actually. Wait, what's that sound? Oh no, it's... Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. That's right, I solved FNAF Secret of the Mimic, way before it's even scheduled to release. So, let's skip all the dilly-dallying before the Mimic comes to get me, and let's get straight into it. One of the more important things about solving this game is figuring out who we're playing as. After all, FNAF always ties in with itself. This was probably one of the easier things to do that we talk about today, but I'll walk you through it anyway. Looking at the game's teaser trailer, Sealwall has quite clearly told us that the game takes place in 1979, so we can instantly place it as the earliest occurring title in the franchise, even before FNAF 4, which famously happens in 1983. From what we know about the gameplay trailer, we're sent there to pick up the Mimic, to which I say, pfft, good luck with that. But anyway, who could be sent by Fazbear to do such a thing? Surely, they wouldn't risk the process getting screwed up by some low-level employee. So who could it be? Well, we know that this game takes place in 1979, and this is where Fazbear is still around. So, that should mean that the business is small with not that many employees, right? So, going off that basis, I have a couple of ideas who we could be playing as. The first possible idea I have is none other than Cassie's dad. Yes, I have to bring him up everywhere. In Ruin, when we get the Faz Wrench, Cassie makes a point of how it's just like her dad's.
A Faz Wrench? It's just like my dad's.
In the gameplay trailer for Secret of the Mimic, we see the player use what looks like an older version of the Faz Wrench, so this already links to that. However, the Faz Wrench is pretty much the only real evidence we have for this, and plus, if Cassie's dad really is the Bonnie Bully from the Bite of 83, then he'd be way too young to do something like this. Number 2, which I find far more likely, is Henry. Think about it. This person is clearly well trained enough to be able to have the Fazbear execs think that they could get the job done without issue. But on the other hand, Henry is one of the Fazbear execs himself, which kind of throws a spanner in the works. Although, you could interpret it as Henry being well trained in engineering enough to be able to handle something like the Mimic. Or, you know, maybe he went in there just to get the job done quickly. Next, let's take a close look at Jackie, specifically her design. Or should I say designs? Look closely. One design is clearly much less battered up than the other, and for good reason. Now, look at the eyes. The one on the left has Jackie with blue eyes, whereas the one on the right shows Jackie with red swirly eyes, almost as if they're heat coils. Now, think throughout the trailer. Where have we seen these heat coil eyes already? If you answered, inside the Mushroom Man, you'd be correct. So, what exactly does this mean? Well, as we know, the Mimic endoskeleton is able to adapt to any kind of costume, which means that it would also be able to fit inside Jackie's casing. So, I think that at some point during the game, the Mimic will deactivate the real Jackie, effectively killing her in the process, and take her casing as a new body. Now, I have seen other people say that instead of this would mean that the Mimic is Jackie and vice versa. But considering they've been teased separately so far, I think that this theory is far more likely. But hey, I could be wrong. But if this is the case, why would the Mimic do something like this? Well, be warned that this is really far out there. But what if Jackie initially acts as a friendly character to our player instead of a straight out villain? It would give the Mimic motivation to kill her after all. Or maybe the Mimic kills her just because she's got a more powerful body than just a Mushroom Man suit, but that remains to be seen. In terms of the actual story for the game, we obviously know that it takes place in 1979, thanks to the teaser trailer shown during FNAF week, which means that it's also in the Fredbear's era of the FNAF timeline. We even see posters advertising Fredbear's Family Diner in the gameplay trailer. But the story for the game is rather different than from the books, if you take a closer look. For those of you who haven't read the books, Edwin Murray is a contractor for Fazbear Entertainment, and he's a son called David. Edwin's main talent is in engineering, so he builds animatronics among other things. However, he's always pretty busy and has less time for his son, So, his solution to this problem was to make a friend for him. It would be a simple endoskeleton made of spare parts, but its defining feature was that it copied everything it saw, to be able to better understand David and have an easy time becoming friends with him. Bad news for Edwin though, because his son gets into a car accident and sadly dies. Completely distraught, Edwin beats the mimic to a pile of metal scraps because it reminds him too much of David, and infuses it with agony. It's from this occurrence that the mimic learns violence. This is the basic origin story of the mimic, but clearly the game has taken a few creative liberties. For one, the books say that Edwin made the mimic for his son, whereas the game tells us that he developed it for Fazbear Entertainment. The trailer tells us that Edwin has gone missing, and this actually happens in the books too, after he beats the mimic, so we can assume that it's for the same reason here. He ran because of his overwhelming grief and regret. I guess he could say that the mimic kidnapped and killed him. That would have at least solved the problem of the storyteller not being in security breach. But if the majority of the story is still true to the books, I don't see how that would play out. So, how do we solve the issue of Fazbear saying that the mimic was developed for them? Well, it's quite obvious really. Fazbear, being the scummy company they've always been, obviously have been eyeing Edwin's tech and, I kid you not, are sending in people to steal the mimic. Exactly the kind of thing these people would do. So, Henry goes in and gets the job done, retrieving the mimic in the process. I have a feeling that by the end of this, the factory we're in will also burn down. But you may be wondering why. Well, firstly, if we rewind back to August, I point out that on Jackie's Jack-in-the-Box box, there appeared to be burn marks and ashes spread across it. Again, in Help Wanted 2's carousel level, the place gets set on fire, again indicating that there is some sort of highly flammable event going down. Speaking of the carousel, there's also the issues of some security breach characters such as Music Man. He's present in both Secret of the Mimic and FNAF Security Breach. Granted, he's clearly an earlier version of Secret of the Mimic, but why is he here in the first place? Well, as we said earlier, since it's most likely that Fazbear is stealing the mimic from Edwin due to his absence, they're also most likely going to steal everything. So, whether it's a complex endoskeleton or a spider with headphones, you can rest assured that Fazbear will get their grubby hands all over it. Chances are, other similarly designed animatronics as well, more specifically the daycare attendant, were also stolen from Edwin. We can even see other instances of this happening in the books. Allow me to redirect your attention to the Storyteller. In short, for those who haven't read it, the Storyteller is a tales book that describes a new initiative in the Mega Pizzaplex that uses an automated AI system to tell stories to kids, in an effort to cut costs and boost profits. At this point, one of the Fazbear Entertainment board members is none other than Edwin Murray, now aged 64. He knows something fishy is going on, and when he breaks into the main area where the Storyteller is held, he sees that the program being used to tell the stories is none other than his very own Mimic 1 code. So yes, Fazbear is pretty much the biggest thief known to man. Another animatronic I want to talk about is Dolly, as she's called by her name tag. Dolly shows up in the Secret of the Mimic gameplay trailer for a split second, running towards the player. Now, from this perspective, it looks like she's hostile, but I have a feeling she'll actually act as an ally in the game. After all, she's clearly meant to resemble a nurse, so it should be in her programming to do no harm. But then again, we've seen programming go wrong in the FNAF universe many a time. Another reason I think she would be friendly is because of the first aid help you minigames in Help Wanted 2. If you have subtitles on, you can see that the voice instructing us to do stuff during these minigames is labelled as Carnival Nurse, and Dolly looks like she's designed to fit in said carnival. So, the chances of Dolly and this Carnival Nurse being the same character are rather high. We also know that since this game takes place in the Fredbear's era, we'll also most likely see some sort of Spring Bonnie or Fredbear costume. After all, the costumes weren't originally animatronics, nor were they Springlock suits, but rather just normal costumes a human could wear, and if a human can wear them, then so can the Mimic. Steel will have known how much we wanted this sort of thing for a long time, and this would be the perfect opportunity to give us what we want. Considering this is also appearing to be in the early Fredbear's era, this would again probably be before the animatronics come into play. Henry is known to be the engineer between Afton and himself, so maybe this is where he picks up all his knowledge. But that's going to be it for today's video. In short, Henry goes to collect the mimic, said mimic kills a few animatronics along the way, Henry successfully gets the mimic, and the place burns down at the end, leading us presumably to the final chapter of the mimic story in whatever comes after Security Breach Ruin. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and whilst you're down there, you should also join my Discord server as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.